Hello, everyone. My name is Jonas Jinkeng. I am a graduate student at Grand Canyon University, and my course is Enterprise Cyber Law and Compliance Strategies. Today, I'll be talking about the Fair Information Practice Principles, the FIPS. The Fair Information Practice Principles is a United States privacy policy developed by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare and administered by the Department of Homeland Security. Um, The FIPS defines the processes through which organizations collect, use, and transmit personally identifiable information (PII). It focuses on protecting the privacy and security of data collected. Many organizations around the world, actually, uh, such as the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, the GDPR, that's the General Data Protection Regulation of the EU countries, and many others, uh, actually got their basis from the Fair Information Practice Act. Uh, this policy, the FIPS, is actually placed under the supervision of the Chief Privacy Officer at the Department of Homeland Security. The FIPS has eight principles that we are going to uh, examine. The first principle is the transparency, and this principle simply states that organizations should be transparent while they collect uh, PII, meaning that notices should be given for the reasons why PII is being collected. For example, if a store is actually collecting information about individuals, of course, they should make them know why their information is being collected. Or say federal agencies should actually put processes in place, notices on why they are collecting people's information and the reason and how that information is being maintained. The second principle is individual participation. This actually means that individuals whose personal information is collected should give their consent to for their information to be collected, and of course should equally have that right to determine if their information should be deleted at whatever period. Another principle is the purpose specification, and of course this simply means that the reason why PII is being collected should be known and should only be collected for the particular purpose for which it is intended for. Data minimization is another principle which simply states that the only the minimum amount of personal data should be collected from individuals. Say that if somebody an organization were supposed to collect somebody's information, say their address, their phone numbers, and their date of birth, should only be collected for the purpose for which it is collected, and the minimum data that is collected, the better. Use limitation actually has to go with the sole purpose for which information is being collected. Of course, sharing PII out of the organization should actually be for the purpose for which that information is collected and compatible with the purpose, and of course with the notices as well. Data quality and integrity means that the quality of data that is collected should be very accurate. Information should be accurate. When we're collecting personal data from people, it should be accurate and up to date, and of course should only be for the particular purpose for which it is collected. Of course, it should be accurate, as we said. The security part of it is actually protecting the PII from unauthorized access. When personal data is collected, of course, organizations should ensure that they put up adequate security processes in place to protect that data. Of course, accountability and auditing simply should mean that organizations should be accountable for complying and with PII processes, and of course, auditing means that they should actually audit their processes and make sure that they are very accurate. The second item that we'll be looking at will be explaining how FIPS can be compared to other privacy policies and laws and regulations. Of course, we know the FIPS provides a comprehensive framework for organizations to follow to protect PII. And of course, it is globally recognized, and of course, is very applicable to many other industries. This law is quite different from other privacy laws like GDPR, like the General Data Protection Regulation of the EU countries. That is only applicable to the EU countries. The GDPR actually states that when organizations are collecting personal data from citizens of the European Economic Community, these individuals are supposed to give their consent to the fact that their personal data should be collected. But you will see that it is a sectorial law, it's a regional law, but the GDPR is a regional law, while FIPS is applicable to all organizations. Another area where we will look at FIPS is that FIPS actually emphasize the importance of transparency and accountability when it comes to collecting PII. Other privacy laws do not actually have this. Uh, we know of the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, which actually deals only with residents of California, and of course does not is not applicable to the entire United States. But we know that the FIPS, the Fair Information Practice Principles, actually is a global law and of course applicable to many other industries around the country. Furthermore, FIPS provide organizations with guidance on how to handle security and of course, personal information, meaning that security processes have to be applicable within the organization to ensure that personal information is not accessed by individuals who do not have the right to access it. But this is totally different with other privacy laws like um, the Virginia Privacy Act that actually has to deal with only Virginia citizens, or the FERPA. The FERPA is the Family Education law, which actually has to do with only the higher education industry, and of course, is not very applicable to other areas. Whereas the FIPS actually is very open law that is applicable to different areas of practice of business. Our third criteria, or the third question that we'll be looking at, will be describing how FIPS can be used in protecting personal information or personally identifiable information, and how federal agencies can put each of the principles in use. Of course, FIPS can be used in protecting private information, because it gives guidelines on how personally identifiable information (PII) can be collected, used, disseminated, or and stored. This includes information such as people's names, email addresses, social security numbers, and even street addresses. FIPS provide guidance on the basis of organizations implementing data privacy. Thus, the eight principles of FIPS can be applicable within different federal agencies, and we're going to see how each of them is applicable. The first one is the transparency. Federal agencies should be able to provide a clear and visible information to individuals about how their PII is collected and stored. The second principle is individual participation. Federal agencies should seek consent of individuals whose information is collected. Of course, we see this in most websites, like some of us that work with federal agencies. When you go to a website, you want to search information, it will ask you to give your consent. Do you accept to this cookie, accept cookies and things, or accept their privacy notice? Of course, you have to click yes for certain federal websites to open. So that's actually how federal agencies implement this particular principle of individual participation. The third principle is purpose specification. Federal agencies are supposed to only collect and use personal information for the purpose for which it is intended for. The fourth principle is data minimization. Only the specific or the number of information of federal agencies should collect, store, and use the minimum amount of PII necessary for the particular purpose for which it's being collected. Say, if there was an investigation going on about somebody, only PII that is relevant to that investigation should be collected, and nothing more and nothing less. Data quality and integrity, of course, will equally mean that the data that is collected should be very accurate and up to date. When we are collecting personal information for whatever reason, like of course, federal agencies should to make sure that this information is very accurate and complete and up to date, and ensure that the data is reliable and can be used for the purpose for which it is collected. And of course, the seventh principle will be security. Federal agencies should take appropriate measures to protect PII from unauthorized access, use, and or modification or disclosure. This will mean that federal agencies should implement proper access controls, encryption, and of course, make sure that passwords are hashed for whatever system that they are collecting information or what system that information resides on. And the last principle will be the accountability and audit. Federal agencies should be accountable for the information that they collect. Of course, meaning that they should have appropriate processes in place that will protect that information, so that if there's an audit tomorrow, they should be able to provide accurate information in regards to that. Of course, they should be equally accountable for the personal information, and of course, they should not sell it. Once the personal information is collected, for whatever purpose it's collected for, it should only be used for that, and at the end, it should be decommissioned or returned to the individual, of course, or deleted. We know the principle of the right to be forgotten by GDPR, that states that that personal information that the users have the right to advocate for the right to be forgotten, that they can decide that their personal information should be deleted at whatever time. Thank you. We've come to the end of our presentation today. See you in our next video or in our next class. Thank you.